Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Beer Rating with Sean Connors. This week, we're looking at a beer from Austria. If you remember last week, we looked at a Muskoka Schnick Stout. It had nice little graphics on the can. This week, we've gone the exact opposite, pretty basic can. This is a Salzburger Stiegl Bier from Austria. It's a lager, it's a Pilsner, which is a type of lager. So I'm just going to pour it up. You may notice the glass I poured it in is actually called a Pilsner glass. There's several different varieties. Basically, the normal, longer, almost like a champagne flute. And the whole purpose of it is to show off the color and the carbonization. There's slight variances of the glass, but this is typical. Another one I have here, it's also the same type of thing, a little bit smaller. This one, as you can see, it's totally straight, which is more or less a traditional Pilsner glass. This one's a little bit different, but it's all got the champagne flute to it. Okay, so I'll give it a little aroma test. Yeah, nice little smell, nice little golden color. Not bad. It's kind of similar to what we're used to in North America from our macro breweries, with a little bit of a zing to it. Personally, that's how I find. So we'll talk a little bit about the beer first. As I mentioned, it's Salzburger Stiegl Bier. It's from Austria. It's actually a private brewery in Austria. I think it's the leading brewery there. Its alcohol content, let's have a look. I think it's 4.9. So it's about average. It's Salzburg is actually the city where it's brewed. Stiegl, the translational Stiegl basically is a small set of stairs next to a brew house. Why they picked that name for the beer, I can't really tell you, but you can see on the can there's actually almost like a little staircase. It's not a bad beer. A little bit hoppy, but not too bad. Interesting. I like it. Haven't really decided how much I like it, but I'll take a couple more sips. I would just safe to say. The brewery itself, actually, it's in Austria. Austria is one of those countries. I wouldn't say it's the top 3 or 4 brewing countries. Like when you think of the big breweries, a big country, you think Germany, Belgium, British Islands too a little bit. Probably not Austria in the top 3, but definitely the top 10. They're pretty serious about their beer there. There's actually another brewery, Salzburger's in Austria. There's actually another one, I think it's Starkenburger. It's about 2 hours away from this brewery. And the brewery's actually part of a castle. And in the castle, in the basement, they actually used to ferment their beer, which they no longer do. So the area that they used to ferment in the basement, they actually now have pools of beer. I think it's either 7 or 13 pools that you can actually bathe in. So basically you go there, the beer is warmed up a little bit, you can bathe in the pools of beer. It's supposed to be good for your skin, your hair, and whatnot. And you can have a cold beer while you're there. So if you're ever in Austria, I know if I go there, that's one thing I definitely want to check out. They're also known for using local ingredients. They actually brew according to the purity laws, and I'll get into that in a little bit later. But they're pretty serious about their beer. And another interesting note on this brewery is that apparently it used to be a stop where Mozart himself, who was an Austrian, used to go for his beer. So how many brewers can say that? I'm enjoying the beer, I must say that. It's one of the better ones that I've had to date. It's not perfect by any means. I'm definitely enjoying it. So I'll just leave the can there. Definitely enjoyable. I'm debating exactly how enjoyable. I said a couple minutes ago about the purity laws. It was 1500s, I believe around 1516. It was in Germany, which at the time I believe was Bavarian. I'm not a history buff, so don't quote me on that. But they actually had what they call the Bavarian purity laws, also known sometimes as the German purity laws. And that was specifically for beer. And what they said is that if you're going to make beer, you have to follow the purity laws. And the only ingredients that can be used are, let's move this over a bit, water, just regular H2O wherever it's found, your malt, which is your grain, and most cases it's barley. Got some barley here. Your hops, you have to use hops, and your yeast. So basically, under the Bavarian purity laws, these were the only 4 ingredients that you could use to make beer. And to this day, the Salzburger brewery still follows that. So all their beers are made out of these 4 ingredients. That's it. There's no other additives. A lot of craft breweries, I'm not going to say all of them, but a lot of craft breweries still follow this to this day. Excuse me. And when you think about it, it's pretty amazing that you can get a ale, a lager, a stout, a porter, whatever the case might be, by using just these 4 ingredients. Within the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about actually what each ingredient does, but I just wanted to bring that out. So 4 ingredients make beer and make a humongous different varieties of beer. Today, a lot of macro breweries, I think in Canada, they can have up to 108 different types of ingredients to add to their beer. And most of the craft breweries, the smaller breweries, this is what they use. Now, if they're going to make a wheat beer or a raspberry beer, obviously they're going to add something else. But a lot of craft breweries to this day, they follow the same law. It's not a purity law as such, but they go by the same principle, by these 4 ingredients. So that's rather interesting. And like I said, every ingredient has a different role. And in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to talk about each ingredient separately. So next week, depending if things go well, we'll talk about the exact role of water in the beer. Now back to this one. Definitely enjoyable beer. My go-to beer in general is a lager. It's actually funny because for the last month I've been doing the different beers. I'm not a beer. I used to be a big beer drinker, not so much anymore. So recently, I've been doing these episodes, all these different beers. Before that, I did a advent calendar, which I had for 24 days. I had a different beer. So I haven't had my typical macro brewery in a while. I had it the other night, and after drinking all these different craft beers and different beers for the last 2 months, it was amazing. The macro brewery I had, it was one of the bigger ones that you see. There was no taste to it. It was almost like drinking water. I'm not a fast drinker. It was like 2 gulps, it was gone because I'm so used to the more flavorful beers. A lot of the craft breweries, I like them, but if I'm going out on a run with the boys, I wouldn't be able to drink a lot of them. A lot of them fill you up, which nothing wrong with that. But this is more in line of what you might be used to for a macro brewery. I wouldn't call it a macro brewery, but it's a lager. So most of what we get in North America from our macro breweries are Molson's or Budweiser. It's along this line, but this is like that, but a little bit more to it. Really like that. For a rating, it's definitely no less than a 4. My thing now, it's, as I said before, a 5 would be like the heavens are open, nectar of the gods. Not quite there. I would give this beer, the Salzburger Stiegl Bier, I'm tempted to give it a 4.5. Yeah, I think I'm going to give it a 4.5, which I believe is the highest rating I have to date. Like I said, I'm a lager drinker in general. I like the different type of ales and whatnot, but my go-to beer normally is a Pilsner or lager type thing. So I might be a little bit biased. By all means, check it out. Weekend's coming up, grab a couple. Note on Facebook or on my YouTube videos what you think. Also, if you have a beer that you want me to test, by all means, mention it. I had a friend of mine just recently mention a Japanese beer. I think it's Sapporo, somewhere along that lines. I haven't looked into it, but I'm hoping to have that in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I think I'll satisfy with the 4.5. Like I said, it's almost like what we're used to here in North America with a little bit more of a oomph to it. It's a nice beer. So until next week, subscribe to me on YouTube, like me on Facebook, share the videos on Facebook, and I hope to see you all again next week. And as always, remember, enjoy responsible. Cheers.